Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CSR universe, where we delve into the corporate social world of corporate social responsibility and sustainability. And in today's dynamic landscape, the discussion surrounding women's leadership roles and women empowerment has gained significant momentum, emphasizing the profound impact women can have in the corporate world. And to shed light on this crucial theme, we are honored to have our distinguished guest for our Leaders Tech Talk segment today, Ms. Shubhashree Naldurg, the Head of Women Leadership Development at Interweave Consulting, which is India's premier firm specializing in inclusion solutions. So a very hearty welcome to you, Shubhashree ji.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm delighted to be part of this conversation today.
Great. We look forward to it too. And before we begin with the interview, I just want to, for the understanding of our viewers, share a brief profile summary of our esteemed guest. So with a career spanning over 18 years, Shubhashree brings a wealth of expertise in learning and development, diversity and inclusion, talent management, HR, and OD consulting. Her extensive experience has traversed diverse industries and enabled her to collaborate with colleagues from the US, UK, Asia, and Japan, fostering a deep understanding of cultural nuances in global workplaces. And at Interweave, she passionately champions women's empowerment, leading initiatives that address key challenges faced by women in workplace. So from tackling the gender pay gap to addressing maternity issues and fostering overall well-being, she is a driving force behind creating inclusive environments that enable women to thrive. And with an impressive track record of working with Fortune 500 companies, Shubhashree is renowned for her ability to design and deliver customized solutions that drive tangible outcomes aligned with the business needs. And her commitment to unlocking the potential of individuals has impacted over 10,000 participants, guiding them in areas such as self-awareness, leadership development, change and transformation, and women's leadership and mentoring. So please join us as we engage in a captivating conversation with Ms. Shubhashree Naldurg, where she is going to share her insight on women leadership, diversity inclusion, and the remarkable work of Interweave Consulting in shaping inclusive and empowering corporate cultures. Once again, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Looking forward to speaking to you all.
So, Shubhashree, numerous studies have highlighted the benefits of having women in leadership positions. And for instance, a very recent report by McKinsey and Company revealed that the companies with gender diverse executive teams are 25% more likely to experience above average profitability. So in light of such compelling data, how do you believe increasing women's representation in leadership roles can actually contribute to organizational success and drive positive outcomes?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And thank you for that very generous introduction. Like you mentioned, I come from Interweave Consulting and I lead the Women Leadership Development vertical there. This vertical itself is now 7 years old. And over the course of 7 years, we've worked with 100 plus clients and more than 7,000 women. And I'm really looking to share experiences based on the work that we've done in this space and, share our perspectives and what we think could be useful. I would like to start by saying that you're absolutely right. For the value of gender balance, we don't need more proof. There's ample research, and what is really lacking now is action. And like you mentioned, the McKinsey Diversity Wins 2020 study, which talks about the benefits of having women in senior leadership roles or on executive teams. There's a lot of other research as well, which shows that having a higher proportion of women in senior leadership roles and management roles help organizations to perform better and make them more successful. So this is known. And what is interesting is that it's not just about the financial metrics that get impacted. In fact, there are other studies also which shows that when organizations have a critical mass of women leaders, say 30% and above, boards and in senior level positions, they really start to make a significant difference. And this can be in terms of better risk management, better monitoring, oversight ability, and also having different perspectives on the board and in senior positions enables organizations to take a 360-degree view looking at all stakeholders. So we've seen that there is also an enhanced focus on CSR, ESG, and so on. So it's not just the financial metrics, but I think overall, organizations and societies benefit from having different perspectives and women at senior management levels. I think another thing that, all of us are grappling with today is having to be at the forefront of all the fields that we work in, and thought leadership, innovation. These are really, really critical for organizations, not just to survive, but to thrive as well. And in light of this, again, there's a lot of research available, and PCG has done a lot of work in this area. And in fact, they did a study in 2016, which showed that as your proportion of female managers rise, innovation also increases. And when you had gender balanced teams, and the data they looked at had an average of 39% of women in management roles, these gender balanced teams delivered higher innovation revenues. And that is really important, because then with new ideas, you come up with new products and services, or the same products and services, you see innovations. So absolutely, I think, there is no doubt that having women in senior management roles or in management positions is absolutely crucial for organizations to be successful and more successful than their peers going forward.
So, Shubhashree, can you shed some light on the challenges that hinder the progress of women in reaching leadership roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are many challenges that women face in India at present. And just start by talking about some statistics, based on a Catalyst study, which was done in 2021. They noticed that the proportion of women in senior management globally was about 31%. However, in India at the same time, women held only 10% of the management roles and only 5% of the CEO roles. So this representation itself is a huge area of concern. And why? Because if women are underrepresented in leadership, then they're not able to influence any change for themselves. The traditional organization was built for the able-bodied man. So all your processes, policies, infrastructure, everything was built to cater to the able-bodied man. And if you don't have enough women in influential positions who can ask for change, who can ask for what they need, who can represent their unique challenges, then it becomes vicious cycle where you really don't hear the voices of the minority. And even when you do things like engagement surveys and you capture information from employees, what happens is you then look at what are the top 3 areas you want to work on, and that's the voice of the majority. Right? That the voice of the majority is not your underrepresented groups. So again and again, the changes that women want to influence don't happen because they're just underrepresented. This is our biggest barrier. The other challenges are that, research again shows that women and girls in India spend as much as 3 to 4 times more work on unpaid care work in their homes. And, this is a huge burden. Also, they face socialized norms, which create anxiety and guilt. They face gender stereotypes where they're seen in the role of the nurturer. And, for people to work in organizations, they need to be effective as leaders. They need to take charge. But the stereotype is that, women take care and, they should be nurturing. So there is a sense of guilt, and there's a conflict. And, they face a lot of questions, microaggressions when they're ambitious and they focus on their careers. So again, quite a big challenge there. And because of this work-life conflict, many of them stay flexible. We've seen a lot of women leave their jobs. Other than this, a lot of women face the issue of the convergence of their biological clock with the crucial career years. So, I talk to a lot of young women leaders, and they tell me that, just when I'm waiting for my promotion, I've realized I'm pregnant and I'm really torn between the two things that I should be doing.
Hmm.
Or there are women who come back from maternity and say, I worked hard for so many years and now I've come back, but now my, rating has been penalized, or I'm not getting the opportunities I used to before. And I really wonder, if, there was something else I could have done because I really worked hard to get here. So absolutely, this is another very, very big challenge that women face. Other than this, so many challenges. There's a gender pay gap, which we'll talk about. Also, the tradition of patriarchy, sexual harassment that women face at the workplace, violence, maybe even domestic violence. So, a lot of challenges that we currently face, that the women face, and we need to address these challenges, and change has to happen at many fronts, not just workplaces, but in our homes, in educational institutions, in the broader society. So it's not so easy to solve, but I think organizations have a very big role in
Hmm.
influencing this change, because they then become a part of the society which can influence change outside of their own microcosm as well, because they have a lot of employees who then interact with the society and so on. So organizations can be a big drive, can be big drivers of change,
Hmm.
and that's where we're tending to focus our efforts on right now.
That's great. So before we move on to the nitty-gritties of these challenges and the solution and strategies that can be incorporated to address them, I just want you to answer this, that with your extensive experience collaborating with colleagues from diverse cultural backgrounds, especially from the US, UK, Asia, and Japan, could you share some insights on the importance of this cultural intelligence and adaptability in effectively engaging with global clients? And how has this experience influenced your approach to fostering inclusive environments and driving positive change in organizations across different cultural contexts?
Yeah, so we do work across different cultures now through Interweave Consulting. We do a lot of work in the APAC region as well.
Mhm.
And what we've come to realize is, when we talk about enabling women leadership, right? It's not just that women need competencies and skills. There is also a certain mindset that one needs to address for change to happen. And this is the mindset with the women themselves
Mhm.
and the societies and the cultures and the institutions that they come from. And this is where the cultural nuances actually come in. So if you look at women in a specific organization, say in the APAC region, she faces different cultural challenges in
Right.
terms of the nuances there can be different in terms of expect gender role expectations, the kind of support that she gets,
Mhm.
the kind of support systems that she has at home and at the workplace, what her role is expected in terms of at home, and what they're expecting from her at work and so on. So I think very important, when we talk about enabling women leadership, to realize that it's not just about helping women with skills and competencies that any generic leadership program can do, and even there you benefit from having mixed gender groups, but addressing the mindsets around it. So for example, just to give you an example, to understand our own cultural conditioning, if you look at socialization and the kind of messages that young girls get in India,
Mhm.
they're told things like respect your elders,
Yeah.
be helpful to others,
Yes.
speak softly, be polite, yeah,
Right.
help others.
Mhm.
And they're not told things like be assertive, take charge, be a leader,
Right.
question, even if it's a person of authority, question if you don't agree and you feel you have a perspective. So these are not messages given. So
Mhm.
this influences how women see themselves at the workplace. So similarly, in each of the regions and cultures we work with, I think this is the key thing that one needs to address, because leadership and managerial competencies again can depend on the context and the organizations they come from, but these cultural nuances, the socialization, the messages that they've received, this is the mindset one needs to address to enable organizations and women to get into leadership roles.
Okay, great. So, Shubhashree, what specific measures, according to you, can organizations implement to address issues of gender pay gap that you were talking about, and what role has Interweave Consulting played in changing that mindset?
Yeah. So I think one of the key things that organizations need to do is to actually have a commitment in the first place that they're going to be an equal opportunity employer,
Hmm.
and that they're going to ensure that all employees will get equal pay for equal value of work. I think this commitment is very important. And once this commitment is there at the highest levels of leadership, then it needs to translate into appropriate processes and procedures. If you look at the data, globally, women are paid 20% less than men on an average.
Hmm.
And this gap is bigger in India. This gap is actually closer to 34%. And I was recently talking to young women with an organization I work with, and they were telling me that, they really feel demotivated if
Yes.
they know that they're being discriminated on the basis of pay.
Hmm.
And if they're paid lesser than their male counterparts for the same value of work, then they start questioning their commitment. They start wondering that should I even stay here? And you can see lower levels of productivity, women leaving, looking for jobs outside, causing a higher monetary and time cost for employers. So this is not the best way to go for employers as well, discriminating on pay, because you're not going to be able to retain and keep a motivated workforce. For the women themselves, the challenge is this leads to gap in wealth and retirement savings. And, they take much longer to achieve financial security and financial independence. And that's something which is of big concern. Now, in terms of the work that we do pay audits for organizations. We work with them, we help them to audit their processes and policies, and we help them, we recommend some solutions by analyzing their current data,
Hmm.
and we recommend some solutions for them. And what we usually suggest is that they first start with an audit, and they look at the pay of employees who are doing equal value of work. And once they look at it and they identify the gaps, what is important is to investigate the reasons why there are pay differences, and
Hmm.
which are the pay differences that cannot be justified. Um, and then start, and these reasons could be important, right? Many times we find that some of the reasons are that women go on maternity leave and
Hmm.
they come back, and that year they're penalized for the maternity leave. They're given a lower performance rating. That lower performance rating in many organizations translates to not getting an increment or not getting a salary increase that year. It translates to not getting your promotion at the same time as your male counterparts. So this starts leading to women falling behind.
Hmm.
Uh, the other in terms of their pay, the other thing that we normally see is that women don't negotiate for their salaries as much as men do. And because of this, because they don't negotiate, they don't probably get the market price. Another challenge that happens is when organizations are hiring women, they
Hmm.
look at the individual's pay history to decide on pay. And women often come with less than market salaries because of the reasons we talked about, taking a break or maternity leave and things like that. And when you again pay based on their pay history, you're just perpetuating the same thing, right?
Hmm.
You're not bringing them on par with their male counterparts who've been hired for the same value of work. They also face, gender bias, unconscious gender bias, where if a manager has a female and a male team member, and the male team member comes and says, I have a family to take care of, I'm the primary breadwinner, I really need this promotion, and so on. So then an impression that maybe the women, she just needs this for pocket money. So there is also an unconscious gender bias that maybe my and also a feeling that maybe this should be given to the man, and therefore again you kind of are left with a gender pay gap. So I think very important here to look at a strategy to close this gender pay gap. One is you actually put aside a budget
Hmm.
to do this. right? And that needs to get approval from your highest leadership. You need to gain leadership commitment for this. They can then decide to, incrementally raise an employee's salary over a couple of years or more years, until equal pay for equal work is achieved, even if it can't be done immediately. But there needs to be a commitment and movement towards doing that. Also important to conduct unconscious bias training,
Hmm.
especially for people managers who are making these decisions on pay and promotion, who make decisions on performance assessment, so that they become aware of any biases that they're bringing, and they become more objective in deciding and making pay decisions. So those are some things that can be done, and we do support organizations with this entire process.
Okay,
I
Shweta,
had a
you.
question, Ruchika. Yeah, there was, it's not a question basically. I had read a study, I had come across a study basically, which said that the gender pay gap is actually not between men and women, it's between people with children and people without children. So, what they had found is that women who do not have children, the gap between men and women who do not have children is barely 96%. I mean, they get 96% of the pay, so the gap is only 4%. So, is that something you have observed?
Absolutely, Shweta, great insight there, and I completely agree with you. And like I was saying, actually, the main issue starts once the women returns back from maternity, and
Absolutely.
they are penalized for that period, right? And so because of this, like I mentioned, their pay is impacted. They don't get that increment, or they don't get the promotion. Some of them leave and go to other organizations. Some of them get demotivated, or because they're unable to manage different priorities, they don't have a good enough support system, they leave work, and then they try to join back after some time. Now again, when they try to join back to the workplace, what many times what they face is they're not offered the same kind of roles or
Right.
salaries.
Yeah.
They're expected to come back on internship, or to take a role of lesser pay. And this, because they, what organizations are doing is they're looking at the past pay history of the individual, and
Hmm.
they're not giving them the pay of the role. They're not looking at the value of the role that they're hiring them for. So absolutely, I think this is really the point where women start facing that gender pay gap, and very interesting research. Thank you for sharing that here.
So I would like to just, during the conversation, I'm sure you've come to it, is that how do you because the organization at the end of the day, any company is a profit-driven entity. And if they have an employee who is not able to contribute for, say, 6 months or 1 year, whatever time the break is for, how do they make up for that effort and not let their salaries or promotions get, how do you convince them to do that? That's my question. I mean, of course, they should be doing that, but
Yeah.
how do you convince them to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shweta. What usually happens is, people look at the short term, and they think that this person is going to be away for 6 months, and why should I do anything to pay them for that period? Or when I bring them back, how should I consider them? These are questions. But if you really look at the medium to long term, that's when this starts to make sense. And the business case is that this is a group of talented women. They know the context. They've built networks within the organization. They've been performing well. They're already trained, and these are resources that are going to be loyal when you bring them back and you integrate them well into the organization. And so, for the 6 months they're going to be away, do you really want to go out into the external market, take a chance on somebody new, bring in someone who has to go through the learning curve and then know the organization, and then um, you know settle in and then start performing? So in a way, it makes more sense for the organization to retain the resource that they already have, and that's been loyal, that's trained, and that's capable. The other thing that organizations should think about is that if you start, and this is the biggest issue organizations are facing today, that at middle management levels you're losing women,
Hmm.
and they're leaving, right? And they're leaving. So what happens is, after the middle management level into senior and top management levels, there is no pipeline. the representation of women in these roles becomes smaller and smaller. We're all aware of this. So if you're not retaining women at that point, then how are you going to have a pipeline which is going to go further? And you want to have gender balanced teams. And what is going to happen is, you're going to have the same kind of talent at more senior levels, and we know that not having enough diversity has a direct impact on your success, your profitability, and many other measures. So thinking medium to long term, first the business case for retaining this group, and long term how the organization can benefit from different perspectives, it's important to enable this transition so that you don't lose women at this time and they feel supported, and the organization also benefits from their coming back and performing to their full potential.
Also, Shubhashree, I was just, listening to you, and I was thinking that, amidst these challenges, there is deep-rooted patriarchy also, and there is, this unconscious looking up for validation from everybody for your own ambitions among us women. So, this causes that kind of mental setback, and women have to create that work-life balance because they're expected to play a role at home also for the family, and of course at office also. So, what comprehensive approaches can be taken to enhance women's overall well-being in the workplace, considering factors such as work balance, mental health support, and career growth opportunities? And what are you doing? What are you doing in that respect?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And you're right, women face a lot of conflicting priorities at the same time, right? And we talked about this in terms of your biological clock and conflicting with what you want to do with your career. And we hear this a lot from women where, there is a perception of who is the ideal mother. And there is a perception that ideal mother is someone who's 100% committed to her family and her children. And so when she comes to work, there is a sense of guilt that she carries.
Yes.
And this definitely impacts the levels of stress, guilt, mental well-being that women face. And other than this, also, there are a lot of, even if we're not talking about working mothers, like you rightly said, there are a lot of gender stereotypes and expectations from women. And when
the roles have been glorified, you have to be a perfect mother, you have to be perfect in office also.
So, yes, absolutely. So perfect in office also, perfect mother also, and which is very difficult to juggle, right? And even for women who are not mothers, there's a lot of expectation about how they should behave. What is, they're expected to behave in a certain way, which becomes socially acceptable. So there are a lot of challenges that women and conflicts that women constantly face there, impacting their well-being. So I think a very, very important question. And there are a number of things that organizations can do in terms of well-being. I think, right, like you rightly said, addressing that emotional health, counseling facilities, that can be really important. And if you look at, even ensuring that you have created an awareness in your organization around a zero tolerance for any acts of abuse, violence, or even sexual harassment, just providing that really safe environment for women is also extremely critical to ensure their well-being. And this may sound a little trivial, but even ensuring that you have separate and safe and secure washrooms for women, especially in organizations where you have large construction sites or work that happens outdoors, and majority of the men working in those sites are actually men. And so, you really are not thinking about how do we make this a safe, secure space for women. Even things like that impact their well-being. And giving access to doctors on call for any health issues, including reproductive health, having periodic women health checkup camps or awareness drives, all these things can help. In terms of well-being, like I said, safety is an extremely important thing that organizations need to think of. So making sure of small things, in terms of infrastructure, like having well-lit workplaces, staircases, parking lots, where you expect women to be working, maybe when it's dark and things like that, or even ensuring that if women are traveling on business travel, Yeah, you ensure that women get an opportunity to stay in safe places, that there is company transport for them to and from the location, especially in organizations where women work in night shifts. Making sure that they have a safe company transport, an escort for safety. And so these are small things, but these are hygiene, and many times these are not addressed. So this is really important in terms of looking at not just mental well-being, but also creating safe, physical and secure workplaces. In terms of work-life balance, I think a lot of organizations just acknowledge and the contributions and recognize what people do at the workplace. But they should also look at helping employees lead a more balanced life, where they can also celebrate their roles outside of office. And one of the key things that a lot of women ask for these days is flexibility. Flexibility in this can take different forms. It may be that they start at a different time, or they leave earlier while they still work some core hours. Some women look for remote working or telecommuting, or even work from home. So these things can be really helpful, and especially when you have young mothers, and there are some medical emergencies, you need to take time to care for your young child, or even if not young mothers, anyone who has caregiving responsibilities, giving them the flexibility to manage that in addition to coming to work. This kind of support really helps. And in terms of work-life balance, the other thing that we talk about is when somebody is reintegrating back into the workplace. Maybe they've been away for maternity or for caregiving or some other reason, and they're coming back, then giving them some support at that time with a phased return to back approach. Again, this can mean some reduced hours initially till the person reintegrates. This can also be really helpful in bringing people back. So just some thoughts there on working on well-being and workplace flexibility. So we do work with organizations on policy reviews, and we help them to look at their current policies around these things, and then give them recommendations on how they can make workplaces more safe, how they can also enhance the well-being of women in their organizations.
So, Shubhashree, based on experience, how accommodating have these organizations or corporations been to your suggestions and ideas? Can you share some examples?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Now, what usually happens is organizations who want to make a change are the ones who approach us, and they've already made up their minds that something needs to change, and that's because they notice that their current policies and processes are not working, and they're not being able to retain women, or they're not being able to hire women because their employer branding is not strong enough to hire a group of talented women. So they've already, in a sense, made up their mind that some change needs to happen. And usually we find them very receptive because, like I said, the battle is half won, and we find that organizations do make these changes, and they see the value of it. Once we give the recommendations.
So, coming back to intersectionality now. So intersectionality plays a significant role in understanding the experiences and challenges faced by women, like you just shared, and especially women coming from diverse backgrounds and communities. So how do you think can organizations adopt an intersectional approach in their diversity and inclusion efforts to ensure inclusivity of all women in leadership roles? It's not just catering to one particular kind of community, but people who are very ambitious, women who are very ambitious and want to be at the top of the leadership. So what is your agenda for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, a lot of times organizations have an agenda saying that, we need to work on gender diversity. They're going to have some goals. We're going to increase our representation. And what they don't realize is that, it's not when you're talking about women, not all women have the same needs. And like you said, there are different intersectionalities, right? So there are women who are single, there are women who are married, there are women with disabilities, women who probably identify with the LGBTQ plus community. So many different, and even there can be cultural differences, there can be regional differences, there can be differences in terms of the institutes they come from. So there are so many different intersectionalities. And when we're looking at a strategy, what happens is, the focus is more on where is the biggest issue. So a lot of organizations tend to focus on, the middle management and working mothers. But this doesn't make their policy inclusive, because that's where they see is the biggest challenge, right? But this doesn't make their policy inclusive. So I think what you've mentioned is a very crucial point, that first of all, when organizations start work on this area, one of the things that they do is put together women resource groups. And these women resource groups come together and they discuss their challenges. They talk about what could be potential solutions, and they are given an audience with senior management. And they're able to represent the needs of all the women in the organization. So this women resource group itself, one needs to make sure that it has people with different intersectionalities. And the needs of not just the majority, like the example I was giving earlier, where you do an engagement survey and the needs of the majority are heard. It's not just the needs of the majority, but the needs of all parties are heard. Because going forward, if you just meet the needs of the majority, you're just going to attract more people like the majority, because the organization becomes inclusive and a conducive space for them. So very important. For example, when we talk about caregiving, right, and we talk about a working mother, right, and if you look at a working mother who's has a young child and has support and so on, and then you look at a single mother, she doesn't have support and she has a young child, their needs become very different. So the kind of support she may be looking for might be far different from someone who already has a support system, in-laws, spouse at home to take care and so on. So if you're just focusing on the mother who already has a support system, then you're not doing anything for the single mother. So it's important, while we are even understanding needs, unique needs of this community, where they need support on, to take diverse perspectives and to put that into your agenda. And I think that's absolutely crucial. Otherwise, we're just going to get the same kind of people joining us and retaining the same kind of people, leaving out more underrepresented groups.
Okay, great. So with that, we would like to wrap up this interview, and we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to you, Ms. Shubhashree Naldurg, for sharing those invaluable insights and generously sharing your valuable insights with us. Your expertise and passion for empowering women in the workplace has been truly inspiring, and we are immensely grateful for the enlightening conversation that we just had. So thank you so much for shedding light on the transformative impact of these factors that can, organizations can actually take up and make this world a better place for women. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruchika and Shweta. It was absolutely my pleasure, and thank you for having me today. And look forward to more conversations with both of you. Thank you so much.